Yeah, so I appreciate you letting us come by and do this so very much. And I just want to say you're very, very special to me and have provided me with one of the greatest experiences of my life as an artist. And I know I've thanked you a lot, and I will also continue to do so. But, in setting up and getting ready for this, I realized that I don't know very much about your life and where you're from, and that's one of the purposes of especially the first round episodes. Like I'm hoping to do multiple sessions with people,
Mhm.
but I'm very curious to hear about where you were born and where you grew up.
I grew up in Seattle, Washington. I'm from this area,
Okay.
and I went to Queen Anne High School when it
Oh,
still existed before it became apartments and condos. Um, I ended up on the East Coast. I went to graduate school in New York City and was there for 10 years and then Philadelphia for a couple. I had a different career at the early stage of my life, but I'm
okay,
from this area.
okay.
And very few people really move out of this area who
Hmm.
grew up here. I noticed that. I think I only knew one person in New York City who was also from Seattle. A lot of people go there to go to school or
Hmm.
for jobs for a period of time, but it draws you back for sure.
Okay. Did you ever have any aspirations of being an artist growing up or anticipate a career in the arts?
No, I always took art classes. I enjoyed it. From junior high, high school on. I saw art as kind of a form of therapy. In New York City, I my first career was in hospital planning. I got a master's degree in public administration, and um, I tend to be a workaholic,
Hmm.
and I needed to be able to check out of work. So signing up for art classes at night
Okay.
helped me do that. And then there's other great things in New York City. That I remember a group of friends. We would go to the Art Students League. It was Friday nights, I believe. They had this open life drawing
Hmm.
session you could go to, um, and that was pretty wonderful. So I always thought of art as a kind of a way to explore things and get out of work.
Okay.
I wasn't very good at leaving work. I could stay till 10 at night very easily.
Yeah. Why
So
why do you think that is? What about work?
um, I, I think I'm pretty driven. Um, tend to take on maybe more than I can chew sometimes too.
And
That's part
shoot
of it.
anyway?
But my first big career was in hospital planning, working at Mount Sinai Medical Center. It was a
Hmm.
huge, huge new hospital project. And I got different promotions and ended up being director of facilities planning. And it was
Okay.
just a huge job, lots at stake.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, I don't know. I just have never really been good at, I always find things that interest me that I want to be very good at. And then I haven't been so good at turning the switch off.
Do
So,
you do you find that you enjoy working in the sort of high stakes realm?
yeah, I mean, otherwise,
What's the
kind of what's
point?
the point? And high stakes can be defined in so many ways.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I like challenges. I like doing something that will have some impact on
Hmm.
other people's lives. So that's I think what I'm really drawn to, like
Yeah.
contributing, somehow. It could be almost any field. So but no, I never aspired to be a working artist.
Hmm.
I've enjoyed even taking classes from working artists, being around them and
Oh, nice.
sort of drawing that energy from people. But um, no, I never really envisioned myself doing that. When I was at Mount Sinai Medical Center, one of the last pieces of the project that we decided to take on was an art collection. And
Okay.
this was in the 1980s. And now, if you go to any medical center, there are
Everywhere.
huge collections.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the case. I mean, there weren't a lot of models
Hmm.
in the 1980s. And I was able to travel some around the country. We were playing with this idea of regional art collections from different regions. And um, so, I was able to kind of get a feel for that,
Hmm.
um, what you might experience in the Southwest versus the Southeast,
Okay.
et cetera. And that got me more interested in the arts, in the idea
Hmm.
of working in the arts. Um, but it wasn't an immediate thing. But
Yeah.
I think that was a seed that got planted.
And you ultimately, I believe, ended up building one of the largest collections contributing
And
to that.
certainly at the time,
Yeah.
it was a 1 million square foot hospital designed by I.M. Pei, which was
Okay.
also an amazing thing. Um, I remember, and these aren't his words exactly, but I remember the vision about um, um, not really falling into the Western view of death and dying.
Hmm.
And he had this vision where in sort of, this is like, very crib note version, but um, in the United States, say, you might go into a hospital and there's a big lobby and it's well lit. And then you go into successively smaller spaces down corridors. And, if you have some terminal thing, you might end up in one kind of room or another, and it gets darker and smaller and you die,
Yeah.
and I remember the architectural idea of going into big sunlit spaces, big atrium, and going into other spaces like elevator lobbies and up elevators. And instead of coming into a smaller, darker space, you're in this beautiful lit atrium
Hmm.
again. So I know that was interesting to me. It was maybe the first exposure I had to an articulated artist's vision. It wasn't a visual
Oh
artist
wow.
in the way that I think of a painter or
Yeah.
sculptor, but it was someone explaining to them what they wanted to kind of take on and solve.
And
Um,
maybe creating sort of experience that you can walk around in
uh,
throughout the hospital. That's really interesting. I mean, that's one of the fascinating things. Like when I started painting, my buddy had a Salvador Dali book,
mm,
and I would just spend hours, looking at the book over and over and over again whenever
mhm,
we would hang out. And I thought, wow, these paintings are so wonderful. I want to spend my life doing them. And then I moved back to Tennessee and I got a job at an art store working with a bunch of artists that were really incredible. My manager, her name's Amanda Michelet Bluen. Um, she was an incredible fiber artist. And when I saw her work, I didn't know art could look like this,
mm,
and then kind of getting into the meaning behind, certain things or, conceptual aspects
mm.
of it was so, so, so fascinating. And just finding these things that continuously pull me in and then working in mixed media. That's just another thing that started doing that for me. What uh, made you,
that explains uh, your work has always had this surrealistic aspect, and
you
that
know,
helps me understand kind of help where it came from too.
oh yeah, oh
Yeah,
cool. What made you move back to the West Coast?
I I think at one point, I was, after, several, many years in this one career, was kind of burned out. Um, but my years in New York City, I moved there to go to graduate school in '82.
Okay.
And it was when the AIDS epidemic was just busting
Mm,
out. And there wasn't hope for people. And a lot of people I knew in New York um, passed away.
mm,
One of my closest friends, my closest gay friend from Seattle, had AIDS and was going to pass away at some point. And I I used to think I'd move back to Seattle to help him, but I also was a point in my life when I needed a different kind of break. And so I moved back and lived in his house briefly. And it's kind of a beautiful story because horrible story with a beautiful aspect, but someone who he had known for a long time, confessed his love for him and
Mm.
moved in and to
Oh,
help him.
oh, that's nice.
But I ended up in Seattle for that. I also, feeling kind of burned out and wondering what I might do next. I went to see a woman who I had known through a social circle in Philadelphia where I had lived next. And she they didn't have the word life coach then. Now you hear of life coaches,
Yeah.
but that's really what she was. And I remember making an appointment with her to kind of figure out what I wanted to do next. And I arrived fairly well dressed at her office in her home, and had my resume, all ready. And I um, entered, and I handed her my resume, and she had this little table over in a corner, and she said, "Well, that's very nice of you. Um, I can tell then you're organized, but here's what we're going to do." And she took the resume and she turned it upside down and she walked over to that little table in this spare corner and she said, "That's who you've been, but that's not why you're here."
Mm.
And she said, "We're going to talk about who you are, who you might be." And one of the things she did, it sounds simple, but it was very effective, was I had to do these writing exercises, like to come see her next. And what's your perfect day? And my perfect day was um, being on the West Coast, um, sitting on a beach, um, looking at a sunset. All the years on the East Coast, you'd be invited to friends' homes in New York. There were people you worked with or for or whatever, and they'd have a lovely home, in Long Island, out in, Southampton or Bridgehampton, whatever. And you'd get to go, people would have these wonderful weekends and parties. And they'd always talk about the sunrises on the East Coast and how wonderful they were. Well, I was young and partying and,
Mm.
you know, um, drank enough. And I never saw a sunrise, but I remembered the sunsets on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And being around art, because at this point I had been exposed to more, and not specifically working in the arts, but kind of having this life of sitting on a sandy beach, watching a sunset, and somehow being immersed in the arts.
Yeah.
And that was my perfect day. And I ended up um, taking a class at Pottery Northwest
Okay.
with my friend Anne because we decided we should take some art classes. She was interested. And I needed another, when you're dealing with people with AIDS, with many kinds of diseases, and when it was only fatal, then I needed a different experience with the human body. And I remember seeing a course catalog. I don't think there was even online stuff or anything, but getting a hard copy catalog from Pottery Northwest and seeing a
Hmm.
class called hand building. And and I said to Anne, and she was going around town getting other catalogs from places of what we could take. And I said to Anne, hands, feet, heads, whatever, let's just get started.
Yeah.
So we showed up, and Tip Tolan, the amazing um, ceramic artist, was teaching it. And I remember thinking I was in the wrong class for a while because when she took some clay and rolled it out into from a ball to like a long kind of tube, I thought it was going to be fingers, like she was going to show us how to make a hand. But she took it and she did started a coil pot.
Hmm.
And I remember wondering if we were in the wrong class because I thought we were going to build hands. But she explained that hand building was the other tradition in ceramics art. There was wheel throwing and there was hand building, and if I wanted to build a hand, I could.
Yeah.
But that's how I kind of got into things um, in the art world here. And then she was no longer teaching there, but she said she taught at Pratt Fine Art Center
Okay.
surrealistic drawing, by the way. And I showed up for the first class, and that night she said she had been up in the office, and the job of director, the director had just said she was going to be leaving
Hmm.
and there would be a job. And, you know,
Raise your hand.
right, well, I applied.
Yeah.
So, and that's how I started working in the arts in the Seattle area.
Okay. I bet that was probably much more fulfilling in some ways that, or spiritually, than the adminning or at a hospital.
Yeah, I mean, it I had saved some money. I mean, it wasn't the career job
Yeah.
ladder I had been in. I was starting kind of, I mean, that job wasn't at the bottom, but it was different. But yeah, I was into it. But
Yeah.
that's so no, I've never thought of, and then I was taking printmaking classes for a while.
Okay.
Ava Isaacson, Barbara Robertson, really Wendy Orville, who that's who told me about you,
Yeah.
and that's how we met. Um, but it wasn't so great when people would find out I was the director of the arts organization. I was no longer just another student in class. Then they wanted to show me their portfolios and
Yeah.
all that stuff, and it was. I never thought I'd, you know, the conclusion I came to was the world didn't need one more mediocre printmaker. It needed arts organizations to survive,
Yeah.
basically. That there were so many that were vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I just threw myself into doing that.
Did you ever find that to be frustrating? And the only reason I ask that is because when I had my show here, you know, you would have moments of, I would have moments of hanging out with people and then friends and then someone that didn't know me. One of my friends would go, "Oh yeah, he has a show at the Bima right now," and they'd be like, "You're, you're like Blanco," and I'd just be like,
Yeah.
"Hi," and you kind of see people switch. I say that people haven't had the opportunity to see behind the curtain, as it were, because it's, hi, my name is Blake. Yes, all of these things are very achievable, but I guess perhaps it's like, people know that you're the director and then they come to you seeking, opportunities. Was that ever difficult to navigate or?
Um, no, when you have a public position,
Hmm.
which these are, you're in that public role, and you can't really expect that people won't, see you for that. I mean,
Mm, yeah.
I've always been lucky. I've had close friends and met a lot of people, a lot of close friends through the different arts organizations I've been involved in as well. Um, so, I can have my private life, so to speak, but um, no, I mean, there are times when um, I mean, I'll give a, well, I don't know whether it's advice or a request, but when I'm out in public, say for I no longer go to First Thursday or
Hmm.
um, things like that because I can't I can't focus on why I'm there to see someone's show, to learn
Hmm.
about someone's work, to hang out with friends because people do approach you and want. And now that everyone has a cell phone and they can show you their last
Yeah.
painting, that's not even dry yet. Um, so there's a part of me that when I'm just out and about, um, you know, but for the most part, my contact information is available to everybody. That's my role. That's my job.
Yeah.
And I should never, be bothered by the fact that anyone's pursuing, um,
Something.
yeah, whether they're really looking for something specific, like could I possibly have an exhibit, or just want advice, like
Hmm.
how I'm a new artist or I'm new to this. What advice do you have? Like how do I navigate this or something? So, but I would just say that um, I have to be a little careful when you're out and about. You're still there and available.
Hmm.
It's just. But I love to go if I'm going to galleries or museums or something. It's usually off hours, so I can really
Yeah.
immerse myself in it.
Hmm. That was one thing that I really, really changed as far as my perspective of going out is I just stopped telling people that I made art. because you go to a space and then you go, oh, there's the curator or gallerist, the person running the space. And yeah, you have the feelings of desperation to try to get your work out there because you're not really sure how to promote yourself and not entirely aware that there's like an etiquette and a way, showing up and just getting to know someone from a genuine place, I think goes so much further than you would think. And just because a lot of people ask me how I got the show here, the first thing I would say is I made the work. I made the big paintings. I'd have people come over and they'd go, "Oh, big paintings, hard to sell." And I would go, "But it gets the idea across in the way that I want."
Yeah.
But, I took a printmaking class at the barn with Wendy, which
Mm.
was so lovely. I heard of Wendy through Kamala Kakaria and
Yeah.
Ricky Wolf from Pratt, and they said, "Oh, you should check out Wendy's work." And honestly, my initial reaction was, "Okay, yeah, I like, sure, I will." And then I forgot, and then I asked Ricky again what this person's name was, and I looked at Wendy's work, and I just went, "Oh, wow." And I found Wendy's email. I emailed her and I shared some of my things with her because I went, we speak a very similar language that not many people speak very different, but kind of in the same realm. And this was during the pandemic, and I was trying to take a private class with her, but COVID and everything, and I couldn't really afford it at the time. And then I ended up taking the class, and it was fun sort of putting our approaches to making work together. And
And your work is so totally different.
so
But
totally
when you
different.
say you saw a similarity, I mean, it's maybe, achievement, excellence in what she's trying to do
Hmm.
or her own vision, and you're trying to hone yours or
Yeah,
something. But
there's definitely a level of atmosphere in her work that
mhm,
I had been sort of searching for. And I ended up showing her some of my paintings or a show that I had worked on. And she said, "You know what? There is a group show of surrealism happening at the BEMA."
mhm,
And she said, "You should message Greg Robinson. You can go to the BEMA's
mhm.
website, you can send him your work. He won't respond to you, but just so you know, he knows like you will be in the back of his mind. And, maybe he will consider your work for the show." And I went, all right, on Monday, found an email, and your most listened to song was a song by Massive Attack. And I thought, oh, cool, all right. And I, made an email basically explaining to you, I heard about the show. I didn't mention Wendy's name because I didn't want to sort of have that. I didn't want to put her name in it. I was like, I just want this to be me and what I'm doing. And if this resonates with you, then it will. Um, and then, sure enough, 2 days
And
later.
I've never done the surrealistic group show. I
Hmm.
met you and your work, and I thought that was. I remember going to your house and um, seeing, and then asking you, you know, you could do a show. Like
Hmm.
instead of being in a group show, you could do a show, and little how much more time do you want and stuff.
Oh, yeah. I remember you said, "This is all really great. Please send me more when you have the work." And I went, "Oh, I have about 50 things that are just ready to
Yeah.
go." I was like, "Sorry to bombard you with things." But I know that you get hundreds of kind of like the cold emails every single year.
Mhm.
It must be overwhelming. Beyond it being my stuff in particular, because I've, seen some of your shows, and I don't want to just say that you show a lot of work that is edgy, perhaps striking, because, a lot of people saw my work and they were not fans of it until I actually got to talk to them.
Mhm.
Um, what is it about uh, an artist, which I'm sure it's like different, but say a cold call email, what was it about what you saw that made you go, "Oh, hey, there is something here that you would like to show?"
Um, I think, well, first of all, when someone refers someone to me,
Hmm.
and I know you didn't, use that card, um, but knowing about that, and it's someone that you, whose instincts you trust, um, and they're also pushing something that has nothing to do with what they do, really, if you compare things aesthetically.
Yeah.
So there's someone has seen something that you know that's intriguing. I think with your work, um, first of all, I had been thinking curatorially of pursuing more surrealism.
Hmm.
It's not something you see a lot in the Pacific Northwest compared to other, like say on the East Coast. With I saw more or just happened to come across more. I had already done a show, a big group show
Hmm.
of abstraction, and I just was thinking from a sort of art history or art education point of view, this could be a good thing for the public. Um, but looking at your work, um, I saw you pursuing things um, that weren't pretty,
Hmm.
um, and yet they were really beautiful in their own way. It may sound kind of odd. Your use of materials, all this sort of stuff you find, that's not a traditional art material. You were involving a lot of it. I thought you were a good painter. That you had the grounds. You weren't just putting a bunch of stuff together in an odd way, but you had a painterly style that combined with it really well, and it made things so that I think I saw different things, and you are, I really love the story in your art. Not every piece of art has to have a story,
Hmm.
but you have the one big painting about the dinner party, the
Oh
first
yeah,
dinner
first
party
dinner. Yeah.
after COVID, and
Oh yeah.
and you could see very quirky yet serious and articulate stories in it. For me as a curator, if I speak more broadly, um, I you know people ask a lot on tours, group tours, if I have a curatorial bent, like is there something I'm looking for? Um, we are on we're a regional art museum on the smaller side. We're what we call about the art and craft of the Puget Sound region. It's deliberately very local in the grand scheme of museums.
Hmm.
The exception is the Cynthia Sears Artist Books collection. We have a different curator. Now it's Arizona, and that's an international collection, a
Hmm.
separate thing. So we're both hyper local with what I do and international with the artist book collection, um, including a lot of local artists because there's a lot of strength in the artist books world here. Um, but what I talk about, kind of playing three-dimensional chess. Um, Part of it has to do with wanting to be a platform for artists that are not as well known, although we've
Hmm.
also had retrospectives of George Tsutakawa and Ginny Ruffner, and um, but one of the niches we wanted to fill was having opportunities for more regional artists
Hmm.
to have their first art museum shows, whether it's in a group show or a solo show. So that's kind of one of the things. When I talk about three-dimensional chess, what are the sort of themes you want to address?
Hmm.
We're what's important to us are to be relative to the times.
Hmm.
Social justice is important. Diversity is not a four-letter word here at
Yeah.
AIMA. It's very important to us. Other concerns like environmentalism or whatever work their way into different themes and shows. So there's um, the range of artists and where they are in their career, the kinds of themes you want. Um, we are a destination for a lot of day trippers and tourists.
Absolutely.
What's interesting is our marketing department's done these surveys kind of seasonally, a couple of them, and depending on the season, and I may not have this exactly right, but only 6 to 8% of the visitors to Bima are from Bainbridge Island.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, although we're called Bainbridge Island Museum of Art, um, and I think that's because Cynthia Sears, our founder, ended up moving here
Hmm.
from LA as opposed to Port Townsend or Redmond or
Yeah.
somewhere. Um, but so I have to keep in mind that we have a lot of visitors who aren't really expecting to come to a museum.
Hmm.
Several people, lots of people getting off the ferry may not even know we're here.
Yeah. And then it's
Um,
right there.
and then it's right here. So I want to present things that are relevant. Um, um, I I don't I mean, there's a range of things that could be relevant. Um, but I don't want to have visitors rebuffed, where the first thing they see is kind of a slap in the face or something they don't think they're interested in. So
Yeah.
we curate to kind of draw people in and lead them into a lot of conversations. Some are difficult.
Hmm.
We have work up right now that addresses slavery and slave
Hmm.
ships. Esther Irvin from Seattle has this really strong, amazing work, and um,
Very immersive,
yeah,
which I
there's
love.
Paul Rucker's Forever series, which civil rights martyrs that he might thought were never going to be well enough known to have their own
Hmm.
postage stamps, in their memory. So he's created a series called Forever. So it's not that everything. So anyway, getting back to the three-dimensional chess. There's the building itself, the kinds of spaces, the size, the location,
Hmm.
what we can offer in terms of exhibitions, the different kinds of work we can hang, etc. So I really try to think of something for everybody, um, leading people into conversations they didn't really expect to get into. Um,
Absolutely.
and also just beauty for beauty's sake.
Yeah.
There's um, right, right now or recently, because it's winter, it's cold and dark. We're in a gloomy world right
Hmm.
now.
Yeah.
I wanted to perk things up. I brought back um, Chris Maynard from Olympia.
Hmm.
He has a um, website, featherfolio.com, and he's known here as the Feather Guy. But you were asking about artists approaching me years ago. I got a phone call, and he lived in Olympia and he wanted to come up and introduce his art to me. And I don't want people to drive a long
Yeah.
distance if there isn't a fit or just room on the schedule, whatever it is. So I just didn't want him to. I didn't want to make an appointment and have him just show up and then you find out it's not going to work for whatever
Yeah.
reason. So I asked him what kind of art he did, and he said he cut and glued feathers. And I remember, I think it was the longest pause on the phone of my whole career. I didn't know what to do with that. My sister and
Yeah.
I shared a house by Green Lake in college, and she did the macrame and with the beads and all that
Hmm.
stuff. And all I could think of was bad macrame or
Yeah.
whatever. It ended up being the most popular show we've ever had.
Wow.
Amazing work.
Hmm.
Um, and I brought him back to kind of perk things up for winter. His work is currently at the top of the stairs in the Beacon
Okay.
Gallery. And then Denise Harris, a local artist who grew up in a family with a train set around the Christmas tree.
Hmm.
She and her husband, when he was alive, built this stand with a little train, HO size, much smaller.
Hmm.
Um, and then over time, this idea grew and grew, so it no longer was under the tree, but in a separate room in our house.
Hmm.
And it's amazing village with all these scenarios going on that she's made by hand from train set people and everything.
Well, that's
So I
awesome.
brought that back. So we needed to have some fun, but at the same time we have Aisha Harrison's really impactful solo exhibition on the first floor,
Hmm.
dealing with all kinds of issues, relationships and the environment and the various, scenarios that are important to her. And upstairs, the permanent art collection show. First time I've been able to use the really big space with the collection having multiples by different artists.
Hmm.
And some of the work is has difficult topics. There's
Yeah.
Roger Shrimamura's addressing the Japanese American exclusion during World War II, and Robert Macaulay with his sort of a one more impact of manifest destiny besides killing and displacing Native Americans was ruining, taking over the environment. And
Hmm.
he shows these animals in these sort of dire last stand kind of scenarios. um, so it's this something for everybody, and
Yeah.
yet let's be relevant and honest.
There's a level of openness that I have really admired about this place, especially with the stuff that I was showing, because I remember someone wanted to schedule a Meet the Artist day with me, and I said, I'll take 8 days. And there was a local kind of like pop-up market that was happening. So
Yeah.
there were a lot of people that were, I think the numbers were up to 200 to like 400 people at some points coming in. And it was fascinating to me because I'd have these experiences of, say, a dad there with his family. It's like he doesn't want to be here, He's ready to get to the brewery, grab a drink or something, and he would just go, "So tell me about your art." And then by the time we were done talking, he'd be like, "Oh, so I see a connection between this and then this over here."
Mm.
And he was like, "And it makes me think about this." And then he was telling me things that would, expand my mind and open up how I think about the world. And I just, from the perspective of, an artist that makes stuff that most people don't have nice things to say about what I make. Um, and for you to kind of give me just give me the freedom to show that and kind of see how what I made could interact and make an impact on people. And I'm proud to say it. I mean, it absolutely did. I'm confident in saying that there were people that walked away being able to look at art in a different way. So that openness, I have so much admiration that you were the person being able to navigate and steer this shit. To take a big step back, I'm curious about being the director of Pratt, where you ended, because I believe you're also involved with the Seattle Art Museum or have been.
I've served on the Betty Bone Award
Okay.
committee for a number of years there.
Okay.
So that's I do volunteer for that, and
Oh, awesome.
that of course um, is a huge opportunity for me to be
Hmm.
exposed. Hundreds of, I mean, in any year we have anywhere from the high 400s to 600 some artists applying
Yeah.
for the award, and not it's not, I mean, they're from different regions in the Northwest, so it's not like I can show them all at BEMA, but I have drawn from Molly Vaughn.
Hmm.
I met there, um, and she won the award one year.
Hmm.
And I remember after seeing her show there, just saying if there's ever a point where it would make a difference, um, for you to have a museum show. And she had Project 42, and she selected the 21 point, the halfway point with that project,
Hmm.
which is an ongoing project. Um, so that experience, besides it being so engaging and great to work with everyone on the committee and the staff there, um, it's I've been exposed to so much art and artists
Yeah.
that I would never have an opportunity to know, and be able to feed some of it into Vima. Kokirk Yamahira
Hmm.
um, was also someone I met, and have included his work in group shows.
I would think, or I think that's also something a lot of people maybe aren't actively aware of is applying for these things. You may not get them, but other things can happen for you for just applying to them. How did you make your way over here?
Um, gosh, um, a few stops along the way, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um, I had after Pratt, um, um, Bill Traver wanted to start a gallery in Tacoma next to the Museum of Glass in the old
Okay.
Adler's Mill building, and he chatted with me about helping him convert. You know, he had an architect, and we had to do a remodel. And of course, after hospital planning, the architectural piece was pretty easy.
Yeah.
And I helped him start that, and then ran it a couple of years, and then the job at Museum of Northwest Art opened up,
Oh,
and
okay.
I was asked to apply there, and did, and I ran that for 5 years. Um, I ended up here because we have an artist books gallery upstairs, and it's named the Sherry Grover Gallery. And I had known Max Grover, the great artist in Port
Mm-hmm.
Townsend, and his wife Sherry Grover. Sherry volunteered for us at the Museum of Northwest Art, even though she was in Port Townsend. She was a good friend of Jessica Pavish, who's a board member now at BEMA, but was the president of the board when I board member, and then eventually president when I was at Mona. And Jessica would ask her to come and be the caller at our auction. You
Mm-hmm.
know, someone has to read the information about the piece before the auctioneer sells it. And Sherry did that for a few years, and so I knew her. And she happened to um, call me one day, and she said um, that she has a good friend on Bainbridge Island named Cynthia, and Cynthia has an idea. This was Cynthia Sears, and um, could I talk to them? And so, of course, Sherry had helped me, you know, volunteer and stuff. And I had no idea what the idea was or anything. But I said, sure. And then it was kind of funny because um, Sherry then thought Cynthia should come to the Mona auction that year. And they ended up getting a hotel room and staying over, and asking if Jessica and I or whoever could meet them in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
um, and kind of chat about their idea. Well, the morning, you know, you have the night of the auction, you do your best auction of the year, and everyone wants to celebrate. And um, we stayed up all night partying, and I think we had to meet them at 8 or 8:30 because they had
Yeah.
to take a ferry back. And I think I was up till 4 in the morning. And I remember being in this little hotel conference room, small little room with a buffet breakfast I was too nauseous to eat, you know, like listening to this idea about them wanting to start a new art museum
Oh,
in
wow.
the region. And
Okay.
that's how I met that's how I met Cynthia Sears. And you know, it was a sweet idea. It needed little further development, but
Yeah.
that's how I ended up here, you
The
know.
right person.
Yeah,
Mm.
I think you know, I'd like to say my life and career has been deliberate and planned and all that, but it's kind of just, you know, bumping into people and getting to know people and hearing their ideas, or being referred, you
Yeah.
know, in a way. I've been lucky that way. I remember I was a new graduate student at NYU, and I was invited to one of these faculty parties where faculty invite newer students, you know,
Mm-hmm.
for a cocktail party. And I was just starting, and there was a woman who was going to be graduating from my program, and she came up to me at the cocktail party, and she said, "What's your 5-year plan?" And I had no idea, you know,
Mm-hmm.
what she was talking about. It was not in my vocabulary, you
Yeah.
know. And I thought back to that conversation, like I don't think I ever had a 5-year plan, and now I've been here 15 years at
Oh,
BEMA.
wow.
Yeah.
What is there a discipline or an approach to how you have sort of navigated your life that you think has contributed to your success in doing this?
Um, say, kind of repeat that? Sorry, is there?
Is there a discipline? For example, you know, I exercise is a big part of my discipline that I
Mhm.
feel like carries itself over. Doing really hard things. Do you have any like that? Anything like that, or a mindset that you think has helped you scoot along this path in the way that you have? Workaholic is
Um,
definitely
yeah,
something that helps.
I want I always want to learn something
Hmm.
myself.
Okay.
Um, I talked about the three-dimensional chess model of like kind of putting a show plan together, but there's another sort of analogy or metaphor I like to use, and that is um, I I always think of art museums, you know, the big traditional art museums. I think a lot of people think of them as being up in ivory towers on top of a mountain with a, you know, barbed wire electric fence around it, and then a moat with alligators below that and everything, and
Unobtainable.
you know, unattainable and all of that. And I actually different people on our art committee have proposed us doing a big juried show over the years, and I kind of poo-pooed that because I thought people can just contact us and apply to things and introduce themselves,
Yeah.
um, and the people would say no, no. People are afraid of contacting art museums. They don't want to be rejected, or they don't think they have a chance, or whatever it
Or
is.
they
And
just don't think that's how it works.
yeah, and finally, we did Spotlight in 2023, a
Okay.
huge group summer show, and the response was overwhelming. We had 600 some artists apply. We picked 150, and people could have up to three pieces. But you know what I learned was it's true. You know, I'd like to think that personally I'm really accessible, Beam is accessible, but somehow that still operates out there.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think of it as a big, you know, conical ivory tower thing going up like this. I kind of flip it and put it upside down. And I think that art museums, we're like at the bottom of a funnel and we're benefiting from all of the investments everyone else has made over the years. You know,
Yeah.
I often talk about this in my talks in the auditorium here, but whether it's that junior high school art teacher that was encouraging, or the family that was helpful, or um, the donor who made a scholarship donation so someone could have financial access to
Hmm.
pursuing something they couldn't otherwise do. To you know the person who takes the cash flow hits by running the art supply store, you know,
Yeah.
or you know, on and on, the gallery owner who pays that rent and takes that cash flow hit, but gives that person a chance.
Hmm.
To the art critic that helps expose them further. You know, there's so many the collectors who collect the work
Yeah.
and make it possible for people to survive as artists. Art museums get to choose from all of that
Hmm.
pre-investment. And I get to see people at a stage, you know, maybe they're still emerging or maybe they're a master artist, um, but there are years and years of what I call this pre-investment
Hmm.
that just delivers them to our door to pick from or know about. So I think we need to realize how lucky we are in
Hmm.
art museums. You know, we're not the king of the hill or top of the heap. We're really part of this ecosystem that has existed all this time.
Yeah.
And so I feel there's a responsibility. It's I don't come about curating from an ego point of view, but a real responsibility to work within a mission of an organization to really try to understand artists' visions and
Hmm.
where they could use more help if they need to.
Yeah.
Um, you know, so I guess my discipline is to be a lifelong learner,
Hmm.
and I find that by helping people reveal their story, sometimes they understand it better. They can peel
Yeah.
help it helps them peel their own onion, so to speak,
Yeah.
and so it can be a mutually beneficial journey.
I think the mutually beneficial part of it isn't something people think about because in my mind, I had the unobtainable the thing that will never happen. And then I remember talking to Wendy one day, and I was just expressing, gratitude about, your willingness to like take a chance on me and how grateful I was. And she went, "You don't think that he's grateful to have been able to discover the work that you're making?" And I went, "Oh, okay." You know, um,
And to share it with all these people who wouldn't have expected, have never encountered work like yours,
mhm,
and um, or they've left with so much more of an understanding of something
yeah,
because they saw it. I there's a drawback. It's not all just being going to one big party. Being a curator, but most of my time, I think most of the time of curators, um, is saying no to people,
yeah,
because just do the math. Look at the Pacific Northwest area. Look at the Puget Sound region that I draw from. Um, so many compelling artists.
mhm,
Um, I could literally go away for a weekend and come back with a list of shows for 20 years. And at BEMA, we can do 5, 6 things at a time. We have several
yeah,
spaces. So I can do, say, 15 shows a year, and there's 3 in the artist book room,
mhm,
typically. Um, but that's 15 a year
yeah.
compared
It's
to
not
the
very much.
thousands of people that are compelling,
Mhm,
and are ready to show, have a body of work, or given an opportunity with a little bit of time
yeah,
to do it. So um, it that's uncomfortable because I say no to a lot of people that would be great to
yeah.
show, um, and our visitors could learn so much more. Um, but it's just the mathematical possibilities aren't there.
What
Oh,
have
and one other thing is, um, I'll do a show like Kimberly Trowbridge had a great show upstairs with her tree landscape
mhm,
paintings. She had been a resident at Blodell, artist in residence, a lot, and um, great. It was a great, strong show. Well, once people see that, then I get all these emails and calls about from other landscape painters
mhm,
because they've seen that I like Kimberly's work to show it. And but I just did that,
yeah, right.
and and the schedule's pretty full for a while. We plan about 3 years out for the big shows. Um, so after every show, like whether it was the abstract group show I mentioned or something, I get a flurry of artists kind of in that
Yeah.
vein.
Going, oh, I
Um,
have this too.
yeah, I have this too, and it's kind of like, well, you know, I remember telling Hart James, and Hart will have a show with us in the future. That had I met her first, I might have shown her work
Yeah.
then, but all I did was add a little space in between,
Mhm.
um, because there's lots of people working in landscape, lots of people working in abstraction, lots of people, not enough in surrealism maybe, but the anyway, my point is that that's frustrating too because
Mhm.
you know just too many good artists.
If there was a thing that you could urge artists to do with their practice or approach right now, what would you urge them to do, seeing as how you see so much art?
Um, this isn't financial advice because and what I mean by that is do what you must do.
Mm, mhm.
Whatever your vision, your calling, whatever, do that. Um, don't don't presume there isn't a market for it and that you need to morph what you do to meet some market because that market might be saturated to some degree, but also it's not who you are.
Mhm.
And I think it's hard, when artists have to make a living. Do you know this? how do you keep doing what you must do if you're not finding the financial marketplace for it, the audience for it? And
Yeah.
but I think that's what being, an artist is. It's that's what a true artist is,
Yeah.
you
I
know.
I think the path that you're pursuing, it's different and can still, you have the traditional paths that you've seen historically, and then there is the newer, path that you can pursue now. One thing that I will say is, from my show at the Bema, I didn't end up selling a painting on the floor. And I was very heartbroken by that, because, you just kind of romanticize and daydream about things and then start planning for more work to be made in the future. And one of the things that I started doing was I started investing money. And to me, I went, okay, this adds up, especially over time. And now I can, because I feel like it was, to me it was a puzzle. Like, how can I
Yeah.
do this?
How
What can
can
I
you keep
do?
doing this?
But
Yeah.
the thing that kept bleeding through in what I was doing is that I have to do what I must do. I can't. I personally I cannot make the same type of painting over and
Yeah.
over and
I
over
I
again.
saw that. Wendy, referred you to me at a fairly early stage.
Hmm.
Um, but she must have seen that. I saw that. It's it aesthetically, and that's the other thing about being a curator. It's not I like black and white minimalism.
Hmm.
I collect a lot of different things over the years because I've had artists who've had shows, or you want to go and put a red dot on the least expensive thing in the show if you can.
Yeah.
And but it's not about what you prefer, um, but it is about when you see that someone has this spark and they're creating their own fire.
Hmm.
And it's you're a great example of that. And your work is unique in this region. From what I've seen, you're not, I mean, we all draw from others, but I don't see your work as repetitive or so strictly derivative from
Yeah.
something else. And but yeah, I mean, I don't really have I don't really have much advice other
Yeah.
than keep pursuing it, do what you must do,
Hmm.
and and don't give up, and understand there are relatively few opportunities to show. The
Yeah.
commercial gallery owners go through this all the time.
Hmm.
Um, you're also bombarded,
Yeah.
and but keep trying.
This is why also I think, do the big paintings. I think if you're, like, I know one artist in particular, really great at selling small work, once has very big, very large ambitions. And I go, you know, these ambitions are wonderful, but if you have this bigger idea, a lot of the times these places have big walls.
Yeah.
And, only maybe a few people are so bold as to make work knowing that it's not going to sell. But, I think I really trust my intuition in what I do, and, with pursuing things in the way that I must pursue them. Just have these moments where it just kind of feels like the universe is smiling upon you, and I feel like I've been very fortunate in that regard. We need to wrap up for your time
Okay.
here in a minute, but one question that I have for you is, uh, in regards to what the BEMA is doing this year and next year, are there
Mhm.
any opportunities that people will be able to apply for that you would like to share?
Um, this next year is fully booked. We're participating in Handwork. It's a national effort um, focusing on craft
Okay.
in America. In fact, Craft in America is the name of the nonprofit organization that's kind of spearheading this whole thing.
Hmm.
My understanding is it came out of conversations between American Craft Council. I'm a former board member of it, and Craft in America. How to in this 250th anniversary of the country, how to have people focus on understanding craft more
Okay.
too, and its legacy. So we have a number of shows of craft artists, either
Mhm.
solo shows or group shows. In the future, Spotlight was really popular, and I don't have a date set for it. We were
Mhm.
thinking every 5 years, but I think, I'm getting a lot of interest in
Yeah.
people, even lots of people internally to BIMA that thought it was great
Mhm.
and know that a lot of people are interested. There is we do have this um, beacon window gallery program. It's the two-story window
Mhm.
that you see in the front of the building, and we have capacity to hang all kinds of things. And that's something that I've found that I don't get a lot of applications for or inquiries. I think
Okay.
people might think that that's kind of a closed society or
Yeah, they're
something,
just not aware.
and it's not. And a lot of people don't have a 20-foot something sitting around,
Yeah.
but it's a potential project space that people could inquire.
Okay.
I'm easily found on the staff listing on the BIMA website,
Mhm.
and um, I'm not. It's you know I'm looking for people who have some experience with larger scale things.
Yeah.
And But that's an opportunity to discuss with
Okay.
people,
Well,
and people can, you know, let me know of their work, um, and so I have sort of filed things away, and also if you don't hear back from me, just email me again. The emails are best
yeah.
because it's a written record. I'm less likely to lose it.
Mhm.
But I do get a lot of emails, and it's not a I don't I haven't responded because somehow the work wasn't a fit.
Yeah.
I haven't responded maybe because I just got overwhelmed. There's no
Yeah.
excuse for it, but it happens.
Yeah.
So I think don't take anything personally. Just check
Mhm.
back in.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Greg, thank you so much. I
You're
really
very
appreciate
welcome.
the time. Thank
Thank
you.
you.